Hello everyone. Ted Lasso, Season 2. It's here. It's back. I had some questions about Season 2, coming into Season 2. Based on Season 1, where I thought Season 1 was the strongest was obviously the titular character, Ted Lasso, with its whimsical, almost inspirational content. I would say it was unique as a comedy because it wasn't particularly funny. It was the kind of show that just made you very happy. You had certain moments of unbridled joy watching Ted Lasso. I was curious if that would continue in Season 2. One other thing, as I said before, that I was wondering if the show would improve upon was its humor, whether or not it was going to be funny. And my answers to those questions were generally positive coming out of episode 1. I thought it was funny. It was funnier, I thought, than many of the episodes from last season. I also thought, Ted Lasso, I felt like he might have been a little bit muted, but as we'll talk about later on, it may be part of the theme of the episode. And it did make me happy. There were moments of joy. To get a little bit deeper into what the episode was about, there was a pretty clear A plot, B plot, and C plot. A plot, obviously, was the club, the ties. They've tied, 7 matches in a row, a record of some kind. It all kicks off with Danny Rojas. I love Danny Rojas. Danny Rojas kicking the ball and killing the dog. And then that storyline also went into Ted versus the therapist, which I thought was a great storyline as well. That was something that was one of those moments that you were like, Ted Lasso what I want Ted Lasso to do is just to make me go, I don't need it to be like the funniest show on earth. I don't need it to be the funniest show on earth, although this episode was pretty funny. Just kind of going through the A plot, obviously starting with the kicking. People talk about, writing in scenes of animals dying now because honestly crowds react to that more sympathetically than they do to humans dying at this point. So they typically, dogs dying are put in to make the audience sad. However, I thought that this was pretty funny. It was morbid, but it was like shock value, I thought the soccer scenes, one of the weak points of the first season were the soccer scenes. I thought they kind of looked weird and very obviously fake and very obviously out of place with the rest of the show, but in this episode it looked a little bit better. I liked that. So maybe that's something that they're upping in Season 2. Danny Rojas, more Danny Rojas. Danny Rojas is awesome. I love Danny Rojas. A storyline dedicated to Danny Rojas was amazing. Now that, Roy isn't on the team anymore, now that Jamie isn't on the team anymore, I am looking forward to seeing Danny Rojas play a more pivotal role amongst the players. There was a moment where Danny woke up sleeping next to 2 women. I thought that was hilarious. Just put that in there as a little aspect to his character that Danny gets around. One quote that came out of the episode and out of this storyline in particular was when Ted and Coach Beard were talking in the office, and Coach Beard was like, what you said when I got broken up with? All people are different people. Inspirational quote of the episode. I want to put an inspirational quote in each recap for Ted Lasso. All people are different people. That's a good one. That's where Lasso is at its best, I think, when it's giving you those, wise one-liners. I like that. Then the doctor came in. And this is one of my favorite parts of the episode, that whole scene with the doctor coming in. And originally I'm like, this doctor's like weirdly mean and like really weird as a therapist. And Ted's whole skepticism of therapy, I think, is good. I think it's really good. But that added to the scene, doctor coming in, made it a little bit tense. You don't often get like tension in Ted Lasso. I feel like that kind of tension, at least. I was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? But then the doctor ended up being cool. The doctor ended up impressing all of them, ended up impressing Coach Beard. It seemed like the doctor kind of came in to their turf and she kind of put them on the back foot, kind of owned the day, won the day. That was fun to see. And I think that the fact that Ted might even be a little bit jealous, it's interesting because, Ted has acted as his own therapist. Ted has acted as the therapist for so many people around him. It's an interesting character point to put in for him that he doesn't trust therapists. He doesn't like therapists. It kind of broadens his character to the point where, like, Ted Lasso isn't perfect, right? I feel like the first season made Ted Lasso seem perfect, basically, and deepening his character to the point where he might be jealous that someone else is coming in and doing his job better than he is. I thought that deepened his character overall. Also, was he trying to see the therapist at the end, or did he just like actually want to talk to her, or was he? That was something that kind of confused me. Was he disappointed that all his players were seeing her because he couldn't see her, or was he just disappointed that his players were seeing her instead of him? Question to be answered there. I don't think we've seen the last of the Doctor. That was kind of the biggest storyline that I wanted to talk about. Moving on to the B plot, that was Rebecca and her love interest. Rebecca getting back out into the dating scene. You love to see it. You love to see her getting out from underneath the boot of her abusive former, like maybe not physically abusive, but obviously emotionally and mentally abusive former partner. First, I want to say that the guy that she was dating was so horrendously average, obscenely average, I would say. And I thought that Roy and Keeley were in the right in terms of not liking him. Roy, by the way, looks way better with this beard, with this big beard. Before, it was kind of like plastered onto his face. I like Roy's retired look a lot better than his previous look. There's not much I want to talk about the Rebecca storyline. I mean, it was funny. Ted trying to get in on the girl talk was funny. Rebecca realizing that she deserves someone who's really cool was cool. But the scene that stood out, obviously, was Roy, yelling at her. Not yelling at her, but being very forceful in terms of him being like you deserve better than this guy, and kind of like kicking the girl talk idea to the curb. Just like, be honest, be straightforward. I liked that. It seems like his yoga sessions are paying off. He's a little more in touch with his emotions. It's nice to see. And then the C plot, Roy's retirement. What he's doing in his retirement. First off, the scene where the joke was he's yelling at soccer players and then it turns out it's just kids. I felt like that was an obvious joke. That one didn't necessarily really land for me, but I think it makes sense. I think it's nice. I think, Roy's... I like the idea that Roy is having trouble getting back into soccer after his retirement. It's weird. It's so annoying that they call it football and we call it soccer. Why couldn't we just call it football right from the start? It's like, I try to say football, but then I catch myself because I'm like, who am I pretending to be? Who am I pretending to be? The only thing that I really got from that storyline was just like, let Roy be Roy. Like, Keeley's trying to be like, dude, be a pundit. And everyone's like, be a pundit. And everyone's like, gotta get back into soccer. And Roy's just kind of like, I don't want to, but everyone's like, you have to. And it's just like, let him do what he wants to do and spend his whole life doing something. Like when Kobe retired, right? He was like, I haven't touched a basketball in so long. It's like, let athletes do what they want to do after they retire. Like, they don't have to stay in that career. They made enough money. Like, they can do what they want to do. Which I'm glad that, Keeley came to the realization at the end. But alas, the episode was good. Came back with similar energy, I think. The laughs were a little bit better. Lasso was a little bit muted, but like I said before, I think that might have been because of his whole storyline and his inability to break through with Danny that kind of threw him off, and he wasn't on top of his game necessarily. So I think I will give this episode 3.5 out of 5. I'm gonna do a 0.5 here because I think that it's not a 4, but it's not a 3. It's a 3.5 out of 5. Ted Lasso. See you next week.